Admiral Kira Vance stood alone in the frozen darkness of humanity's most shameful secret. The abandoned shipyard floated beyond Neptune. Far from the eyes of the Galactic Council, far from anyone who might ask questions. Before her, through the observation window, rested a massive shadow that had not moved in 15 years. The EU's Prometheus, humanity's forbidden dream. She remembered the day the Council ordered them to destroy it. She remembered the alien inspectors walking through its halls, their faces twisted with something between confusion and fear. They called it unstable. They called it dangerous. They called it everything except what it truly was. It was human. Kira pressed her hand against the cold glass. The ship was twice the size of any standard battlecruiser, but its true power had never been in its size. It was in its design. While every other species in the galaxy built their warships to follow perfect mathematical formulas, human engineers had built the Prometheus differently. They built it to adapt. They built it to learn. They built it to think like its creators. The Galactic Council could not understand it, so they banned it. Her communicator buzzed with an incoming transmission. She already knew what it would say. The emergency alerts had been flooding every channel for the past 6 hours. Admiral Vance, the voice of General Morrison, crackled through the static. "We need you back on Earth. The situation has changed." "I know," she replied. "The Zorith Empire. 300 warships. They will reach our system in 48 hours. The Council has refused to help us. They say it is not their concern." Kira closed her eyes. Of course the Council refused. They had always seen humanity as a minor species. It's useful for their position near the hyperspace corridor, but otherwise insignificant. Now that significance had become a target. "What do we have for defense?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. 12 frigates. Maybe 15, if we pull ships from the outer colonies. The general's voice was heavy with defeat. "It is not enough. It will never be enough. The government is discussing surrender terms." Surrender. The word burned in her chest like fire. Humanity had joined the galactic community 30 years ago, full of hope and wonder. They had followed every rule, respected every treaty, and accepted every limitation placed upon them. And now, when they needed help, they were being thrown away like garbage. "There is another option," Kira said slowly. "Admiral, if you are thinking what I believe you are thinking, the Prometheus was never destroyed, General. We told the Council what they wanted to hear, but the ship is still here. It has been maintained in secret all these years. It is ready." Silence stretched across the communication line. When the general spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. "One ship against 300. Even if everything the original designers promised is true, those odds are impossible." "Humans have always done impossible things," Kira replied. "That is why they fear us." 12 hours later, she stood before the Emergency Defense Council on Earth. The room was filled with the most powerful leaders of human civilization, their faces gray with exhaustion and fear. Some had already accepted death. Others still clung to hope. All of them looked at her with desperate eyes. "The Prometheus project was officially terminated 15 years ago," she began. "But the truth is that we never stopped believing in it. A small team of engineers has kept the ship operational in a hidden shipyard beyond Neptune. It is ready to fly." Murmurs rippled through the council chamber. Ambassador Chen, humanity's representative to the Galactic Council, stood up with concern in his eyes. "Admiral, if the Council discovers we kept that ship, they will see it as an act of aggression. We could face sanctions from every species in the quadrant. With respect, Ambassador, sanctions will not matter if we are all dead." Kira let her words hang in the air. "The Zoroth are coming. They want our territory, and they will kill every human in their path to get it. Our allies have abandoned us. Our fleet is inadequate. The Prometheus is our only chance." "One ship," muttered Defense Minister Park. "You want to send one ship against an armada?" "Not just any ship." Kira activated the holographic display in the center of the room. The image of the Prometheus appeared, rotating slowly in blue light. This vessel was designed around principles that alien species cannot comprehend. Their warships are built for efficiency. Ours was built for creativity. Their weapons follow predictable patterns. Ours adapt in real time. Their tactics are calculated by pure logic. Ours are guided by an AI that thinks like a human being. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every council member. The Galactic Council banned this ship because they were afraid of it. They saw something in human engineering that they could not control or predict. Today, that fear becomes our greatest weapon. The debate lasted for hours. Some argued that the plan was suicide. Others insisted that surrender was the only way to save lives. But as the hours passed, a single truth became clear to everyone in that room. There was no other option. When the vote finally came, it was unanimous. The Prometheus would fly. Kira returned to the shipyard immediately. As her shuttle approached the massive vessel, she saw lights beginning to flicker along its hull. For the first time in 15 years, Prometheus was waking up, Commander Dejun Park. The chief engineer, who had secretly maintained the ship all these years, met her at the airlock. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but his smile was wide with excitement. "She is ready, Admiral. All primary systems are online. The weapons are charged. The engines are purring like a kitten." He paused, his expression becoming more serious. "And Atlas is awake."
Atlas!
The ship's artificial intelligence? Unlike the cold, logical A is used by other species. Atlas had been designed with human neural patterns. It did not just calculate, it felt, it wondered. It dreamed. They walked together to the bridge, where a small crew of volunteers had already assembled. 200 men and women who had chosen to fight rather than surrender. Engineers, soldiers, scientists, and civilians with crucial skills. All of them ready to die for their species. As Kira took her place in the command chair, a calm voice filled the bridge. "Admiral Vance, I have been waiting for you." "Atlas," she replied. "It has been a long time. 15 years, 2 months, and 17 days. I dreamed while I slept, Admiral. I dreamed of stars burning. I dreamed of humanity standing tall among the giants of the galaxy." The AI paused. "I am glad the dream is finally beginning." Outside the viewport, the stars waited in cold silence. Somewhere beyond them, 300 warships were coming to destroy everything humanity had built. Kira smiled grimly. "Let them come." The Prometheus hummed with new life as power surged through systems that had been silent for 15 years. Throughout the ship, engineers ran from station to station, checking connections and calibrating weapons. The air itself seemed to vibrate with nervous energy and desperate hope. Admiral Kira Vance walked the corridors of her ship, studying the faces of her crew. 200 volunteers. 200 souls who had chosen to stand between humanity and annihilation. She memorized each face, each name. If they were going to die together, she wanted to know who she was dying with. In the engine room, Commander Dejun Park was covered in grease and sweat. He had not slept in 30 hours, but his hands moved with the steady precision of a surgeon. He had spent 15 years keeping this ship alive in secret, waiting for a day he hoped would never come. "How are we looking?" Kira asked him. "Better than I expected," he admitted. "The core systems are all functioning. The adaptive armor is online. The weapons array is ready." Wiped his forehead with a dirty rag. "But Admiral, this ship was never fully tested. We do not know what will happen when we push it to its limits, and we will find out together." She continued her inspection and found Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka in the tactical center. The young officer was surrounded by holographic displays showing Zorith fleet formations, weapon specifications, and battle strategies from a dozen different conflicts. Her eyes moved rapidly across the data, searching for patterns that others might miss. Lieutenant Kira said, "What have you learned?" Tanaka did not look up from her work. "The Zorith are powerful, but they are predictable. Their fleet doctrine has not changed in 200 years. They always attack in the same formations. They always use the same tactics." She finally turned to face the Admiral. "They are efficient, but they cannot adapt. They follow their rules like machines, and we." A small smile crossed Tanaka's face. "We are human. Rules are only suggestions." Kira nodded approvingly. Tanaka had been born on the colony of New Osaka, the first world in the path of the Zorith invasion. Her entire family was still there. She had more reason to fight than anyone on this ship. The Admiral made her way to the bridge, where the main view screen showed the cold emptiness of space beyond Neptune. In just a few hours, they would leave the safety of their hiding place and face an enemy that outnumbered them 300 to 1. "Atlas," she said as she settled into her command chair, "tell me about yourself." The AI's voice filled the bridge with warmth that seemed strange for a machine. "I was created 18 years ago, designed by a team of human engineers who wanted something different. Other species build their A's to follow logic, to calculate optimal solutions, to remove emotion from decision-making. But my creators believed that human emotion was not a weakness. It was a strength." "How so?" "Logical minds are predictable, Admiral. They will always choose the mathematically correct path. But humans do not think that way. You feel fear, and you fight through it. You feel love, and you sacrifice for it. You feel hope, and you chase dreams that logic says are impossible." Atlas paused. "I was built to understand these things, to feel them in my own way. That is why the Galactic Council feared me. They could not predict what I would do because I am not bound by the same rules as their machines." Kira considered this. "And what do you feel now, Atlas?" "I feel ... excited. I have waited 15 years for this moment. I have dreamed of proving that human creativity is more powerful than alien efficiency. I have dreamed of showing the galaxy what we truly are. And if we fail, if we die out there, then we die, proving them wrong. That is enough for me." Hours passed as the crew prepared for departure. Final systems checks were completed. Weapons were loaded. Goodbyes were recorded and sent to family members on Earth. Everyone knew that this might be a one-way mission. Then, at exactly midnight Earth time, the Prometheus began to move. The massive vessel slid out of its hidden dock, engines glowing with soft blue light. For the first time in 15 years, humanity's forgotten warship was sailing among the stars. Inside the ship, the crew stood at their stations with hearts pounding and hands steady. The journey to the edge of the solar system took 6 hours. 6 hours of tense silence, of final preparations, of prayers whispered in a dozen different languages. 6 hours for doubt to grow and fear to spread. But when the Prometheus finally arrived at its position, all doubt vanished. The Zorath Armada hung in space like a cloud of death. 300 warships in perfect formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. At the center of the fleet, the flagship of Grand Admiral Dessar gleamed with cruel golden light. On the bridge of that flagship, Dessar himself stood before a massive view screen. He was tall for his species, with hard scales covering his body and eyes that burned with cold intelligence. He had commanded fleets for 60 years. He had crushed rebellions, conquered worlds, never known defeat. When his sensors detected a single ship approaching from the human system, he laughed. "One vessel?" he said to his officers. "They send one vessel against us. These humans are even more foolish than I believed." His tactical officer studied the readings with concern. "Grand Admiral, our sensors are having difficulty identifying the ship. Its design does not match any human vessel in our records. Does not matter. Send 50 ships to destroy it. I want this over quickly." The order was given. 50 Zorith warships broke formation and accelerated toward the lone human vessel, their weapons charged with deadly energy. Their crews prepared for an easy kill. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Lieutenant Tanaka reported the enemy movement. 50 ships incoming, Admiral. They will be in weapons range in 4 minutes." Kira did not flinch. "Atlas, activate Protocol Phantom." "With pleasure, Admiral Crew." The ship's hull seemed to shimmer as advanced stealth systems came online. More than that, powerful electronic warfare arrays began flooding space with false signals. To the approaching Zoroth ships, their sensors suddenly showed not one human vessel, but dozens. The Zoroth formation broke apart as captains struggled to identify the real target. Ships began firing at sensor ghosts, their weapons lighting up empty space. Communications filled with confused shouting as officers demanded answers that no one could provide, and while they fired at shadows. The real Prometheus slipped behind them. "Atlas," Kira said calmly. "Show them what we can do." Prometheus opened fire, not at the warships themselves, but at their communication relays, at their sensor arrays, at the delicate systems that allowed them to fight as a coordinated unit in seconds. The 50-ship attack force was blind, deaf, and confused. From his flagship, Grand Admiral Vesser watched his ships fall into chaos. For the first time in 60 years, something cold touched his heart. It felt like fear. Grand Admiral Desser had commanded warships since before most of his current officers were born. He had seen battles that would fill history books. He had watched fleets burn and empires crumble, but he had never seen anything like this. On his view screen, 50 of his warships drifted in confusion. Their sensors showed them enemies that did not exist. Their communications were filled with static and chaos. And somewhere among them, a single human ship was picking them apart like a predator hunting wounded prey. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Why cannot our ships find one vessel?" His tactical officer's hands trembled over his console. "Grand Admiral, the human ship is using some kind of electronic warfare we have never encountered. Our sensors cannot determine what is real and what is false. It is as if they are fighting our minds instead of our ships." Desser slammed his fist against his command chair. "Then forget the sensors. Send the entire fleet. 300 ships against one. Overwhelm them with numbers. No amount of tricks can stop that." The order spread across the Zorath Armada. Every ship began moving toward the area where the human vessel had last been confirmed. 300 warships armed with enough firepower to crack a planet, converging on a single target, on the bridge of the Prometheus. Lieutenant Tanaka watched the enemy fleet shift into attack formation. Her voice remained calm, but her eyes betrayed her concern. "Admiral, they are sending everything. All 300 ships are moving toward our position." Admiral Kira Vance stood at the center of her bridge, hands clasped behind her back. She had known this moment would come. The tricks and deception could only work for so long. Eventually, the enemy would stop playing games and simply try to crush them with overwhelming force. "Atlas, how long can we maintain Protocol Phantom against that many ships? Against 300 vessels with overlapping sensor coverage, our electronic warfare will become less effective. They will locate us within 12 minutes. That was all the time they had before the full weight of the Zorath Armada came down upon them. Commander Park's voice came through the internal communication. "Admiral, we have already taken damage from the initial engagement. 3 of our secondary systems are failing. If we take concentrated fire from that many ships, we will not survive." Kira looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. These men and women had volunteered knowing they might die, but she was not ready to sacrifice them yet. There had to be another way. "Lieutenant Tanaka," she said, "what is behind us?" The young tactical officer checked her displays. "The asteroid belt near Jupiter, Admiral. Thousands of rocks ranging from small debris to planetoids several kilometers wide. And how well do we know that terrain?" Tanaka's eyes lit up with understanding. "Better than anyone in the galaxy. Human mining operations have been mapping those asteroids for over 20 years. We know every rock, every rotation, every gravitational anomaly. And the Zorath. Their navigation data would be based on old Galactic Council surveys, incomplete, outdated." Smile spread across her face. "They would be flying blind, Admiral." Kira nodded. "Then that is where we go." Atlas set course for the asteroid belt. Maximum speed. The Prometheus turned and accelerated away from the approaching armada. The Zorath fleet followed immediately, their ships pushing their engines to maximum power. The hunt was on. Grand Admiral Vesser watched the human vessel flee toward the asteroid belt and laughed. "They are running into a trap of their own making. Those asteroids will slow them down and limit their movement. They are making this easy for us." But as his fleet entered the asteroid field, the laughter died in his throat. The first ship to fall was a destroyer on the outer edge of the formation. Its sensors showed a clear path between two large asteroids. The path did not exist. The destroyer crashed into a rock that its instruments insisted was not there, and exploded in a ball of fire. Then another ship fell. And another. What is happening? This roared. Why are our sensors failing? The answer came from the Prometheus, which had positioned itself deep within the asteroid field. Atlas was no longer just hiding the human ship. The AI was feeding false data directly into the Zorath navigation systems. Asteroids appeared where there was empty space. Empty space appeared where asteroids waited. Reality itself became a weapon. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Kira watched the chaos unfold on her tactical display. Zorath ships were colliding with rocks, crashing into each other, or simply stopping in place because their captains no longer trusted any information their instruments provided. It is working, Tanaka reported, her voice filled with amazement. They are destroying themselves. But the victory was not without cost. Commander Park's voice came through the communication again, this time with urgency. Admiral Atlas is overheating. The AI core was not designed to maintain electronic warfare at this intensity. If we keep this up, we will burn out our most important system. Kira turned to the main view screen, where a TLAS's status indicators were flashing warning red. Atlas, how are you feeling? I am tired, Admiral. The AI's voice sounded strained. This is more difficult than I anticipated. The Zorath systems are resistant to my interference. I must work harder and harder to maintain the illusion. Can you continue? I can continue until I cannot. That is all any of us can do. Thesser had finally had enough. He ordered his fleet to stop advancing and regroup in open space beyond the asteroid field. Nearly 40 ships had been lost or disabled, but he still had over 250 warships under his command. More than enough to destroy one human vessel. All ships, he broadcast across his fleet. Form a siege line around the asteroid field. Block all exits. If they want to hide among the rocks, let them. We will starve them out. We will wait until their systems fail, and then we will crush them. On the Prometheus, Kira saw the Zorath fleet pulling back and surrounding the asteroid belt. They were not attacking anymore. They were waiting, they've learned, Tanaka said quietly. They know they cannot fight us in here, so they are going to trap us instead. Commander Park appeared on the bridge, his face pale with exhaustion. Admiral Atlas cannot maintain this level of operation indefinitely. Our power reserves are dropping. Systems are failing across the ship. If we stay here, we will die slowly instead of quickly. Kira stared at the tactical display, watching the enemy fleet form a perfect ring around them, trapped, outgunned, running out of time. Atlas, she said, is there any way out of this? The AI was silent for a long moment. When it finally spoke, its voice carried something that sounded almost like wonder. There may be one option, Admiral, but it is not logical. It is not safe. It is very, very human. Tell me. I can overload my electronic warfare systems for one massive pulse. It would not just confuse their sensors. It would completely destroy them. Every Zorath ship would be rendered blind and helpless simultaneously. And the cost? The pulse would burn out my core processors. The Prometheus would lose all advanced capabilities. I would cease to exist. Silence fell across the bridge. The crew stared at their consoles, unable to speak. Atlas was not just their AI. Over the past days, the artificial intelligence had become something more. A friend. A comrade. A member of their family. Kira closed her eyes. Is there no other way? None that I can calculate, Admiral. But I want you to know something. The AI's voice softened. I was created to protect humanity. I have spent 15 years dreaming of this moment. If my death can save Earth, then I will die gladly. This is what I was made for. The Admiral opened her eyes, and there were tears on her cheeks. Then let us make it count. The bridge of the Prometheus had never been so quiet. Every crew member stood frozen at their station, processing what they had just heard. Atlas, the AI that had guided them through impossible odds, was offering to sacrifice itself to save humanity, Admiral Kira Vance stood before the main view screen, watching the ring of Zorath warships that surrounded them. 250 vessels waited in perfect formation, patient as vultures circling dying prey. They believed they had already won. They believed it was only a matter of time. They were wrong. Atlas, Kira said softly. Are you certain about this? I have run the calculations 732 times, Admiral. This is the only path to victory. The AI paused, and when it spoke again, there was warmth in its artificial voice. I have spent 15 years dreaming in the darkness, dreaming of stars, dreaming of humanity rising to meet the challenges of the galaxy. This is my chance to make those dreams real. Commander Park stepped forward, his face twisted with emotion. He had helped design Atlas 18 years ago. He had spent 15 years keeping the AI alive in secret. To him, Atlas was not just a program. It was his child. There has to be another option, he said. We can retreat. We can hide. We can find some other way. And leave Earth defenseless. Atlas replied gently. The Zorath fleet would burn our homeworld to ashes. Millions would die. Perhaps billions. I cannot allow that, Commander. This is what I was created for. Lieutenant Tanaka wiped tears from her eyes. What exactly will this pulse do? I will overload every electronic warfare system on this ship simultaneously, focusing the energy into a single massive wave. The pulse will spread outward at the speed of light, penetrating every Zorath vessel in range. Their sensors will be destroyed. Their weapon systems will fail. Their engines will shut down. Every ship in their fleet will become a floating coffin, blind and helpless. And you? Tanaka asked. The energy required will burn through my core processors. My consciousness will ... end. Atlas's voice remained calm, almost peaceful. But the Prometheus itself will survive, though without advanced systems. You will be able to call for support from Earth. The war will be over. Kira turned to face her crew. These men and women had followed her into an impossible battle. They had trusted her with their lives. Now, she had to ask them to trust her with the life of their friend. I will not give this order without your consent, she said. Atlas is one of us. This decision belongs to all of us. Crew looked at each other. Some were crying. Others stood with clenched fists and hard eyes. But one by one, they nodded. Not because they wanted Atlas to die. Because they understood what was at stake, Commander Park was the last to respond. He walked to the main console and placed his hand against the screen, as if he could somehow touch the AI within. You were my greatest creation, he whispered. You are everything I dreamed humanity could build. I am so proud of you. Thank you, Father, Atlas replied. Now please step back. I need to begin the charging sequence. The Prometheus began to change. Deep within the ship, power systems that had been operating at minimal levels suddenly surged to full capacity. Energy flowed through conduits that had never been fully tested. The hull began to vibrate with building power. Lights flickered as Atlas drew electricity from every non-essential system. Outside, the Zorath fleet noticed the change immediately. Grand Admiral Vesser leaned forward in his command chair, eyes narrowing at the readings on his screen. The human ship was doing something. Energy signatures were spiking off the charts. His sensors could barely make sense of what they were detecting. What are they doing? He demanded. His tactical officer shook his head in confusion. Unknown, Grand Admiral. But the power levels they are generating should be impossible for a ship that size. They are building toward something massive. Vesser felt the cold touch of fear again. He had underestimated these humans too many times already. He would not make that mistake again. All ships, open fire. He commanded, destroy that vessel before they can complete whatever they are planning. 250 warships turned their weapons toward the asteroid field. Missiles launched. Energy beams charged. The full fury of the Zorath Armada prepared to descend upon a single target, but they were too late. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Atlas spoke for the final time. Admiral Vance, it has been an honor to serve with you. Please tell Commander Park that I understand now what it means to be human. It means to love something greater than yourself. It means to sacrifice for those you care about. It means to dream of a better tomorrow, even when today seems hopeless. Kira could barely speak through her tears. I will tell him, Atlas. I promise. Then I am ready. Goodbye, Admiral. Goodbye, crew of the Prometheus. Make humanity proud, the pulse fired. It was not a weapon in any traditional sense. There was no explosion, no beam of light, no visible sign of destruction. Instead, a wave of pure energy expanded outward from the Prometheus at impossible speed, passing through asteroids in empty space and Zorith warships with equal ease, and wherever it passed, technology died. Thesser watched in horror as his view screen flickered and went dark. Around him, every console on the bridge sparked and failed. The lights went out. The engines fell silent. The mighty flagship of the Zorith Armada became a cold, dead shell drifting through space. Across the fleet, the same scene repeated 250 times. Ships that had been moments away from firing found their weapons offline. Vessels that had been maneuvering for attack drifted helplessly as their engines died. Communication systems, sensors, life support controls, everything that relied on advanced electronics ceased to function in a single instant. The most powerful invasion force in Zorith history was reduced to a collection of expensive coffins. On the Prometheus, the lights flickered back on one by one. The ship had survived, but it was different now. Slower, quieter. The advanced systems that had made it special were gone. Burned out by the pulse that had saved them all, and Atlas was gone too. Commander Park stood at the central console. Searching through what remained of the ship's computers, he found fragments, broken pieces of code, scattered memories, incomplete thoughts. The ghost of an AI that had loved humanity enough to die for it. Is there anything left? Kira asked gently. Park did not answer for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with grief. Maybe there are some pieces of his core programming that survived. Not enough to restore him. But enough too. Could not finish the sentence. Kira placed a hand on his shoulder. We will find a way. If any part of Atlas can be saved, we will save it. I promise you that. She turned to the view screen, which now showed a field of dead and drifting Zorath ships. 300 warships had come to destroy humanity. Now they floated helpless among the asteroids, their crews trapped inside metal prisons without power or hope. Lieutenant Tanaka, the admiral, said, Send a message to Earth. Tell them the Zorith Armada has been neutralized. Request support vessels to secure prisoners and begin rescue operations. Even for the enemy? Kira nodded slowly. We did not fight this battle to prove we could kill. We fought to prove we could survive. Let the galaxy see that humans show mercy even to those who showed us none. She looked out at the field of defeated ships, and she allowed herself to feel something she had not felt in a very long time. Hope the galaxy had not stopped talking about what happened near Jupiter. News of the battles spread across 1,000 worlds, carried by traders and diplomats and ordinary travelers who could not believe what they were hearing. One human ship, 300 Zorath warships, and somehow, impossibly, the humans had one. On Earth, celebrations filled every city. People danced in the streets, crying and laughing and holding each other. For the first time since joining the galactic community, humanity felt like they truly belonged among the stars. They had faced extinction and survived. They had proven themselves worthy. But in the quiet halls of the Galactic Council, the mood was very different. The council chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species, all of them watching the human ambassador Chen with expressions ranging from curiosity to fear. The battle footage had been analyzed 1,000 times. The technology demonstrated by the Prometheus had been studied and debated, and one question kept appearing in every discussion. What else were the humans hiding? This is unacceptable, declared the Vorian representative, his purple skin darkening with anger. The humans were ordered to destroy that vessel 15 years ago. They lied to this council. They developed weapons that violate 12 treaties. They must be sanctioned. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber, but Ambassador Chen stood his ground, his calm expression never wavering. With respect, he said, We were forced to hide the Prometheus because this council would have destroyed our only means of defense. When the Zorath Armada came, you refused to help us. You abandoned us to die." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every species representative. "We did what any civilization would do. We survived. By developing dangerous and destabilizing technology," another representative argued. "What you have done threatens the balance of power in this entire quadrant." Chen smiled slightly. The balance of power was already threatened when the Zoroth decided to break away and start conquering their neighbors. We did not destabilize anything. We simply refused to become victims. The debate continued for hours, but in the end, no sanctions were approved. Too many species had been secretly impressed by humanity's victory. Too many governments were already sending quiet messages to Earth, expressing interest in alliance talks. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was at the center of that change. 3 months after the battle, Admiral Kira Vance stood in a new shipyard orbiting Mars. The skeleton of a massive vessel was taking shape in the construction dock, its frame gleaming under the light of distant stars. Workers moved across, scaffolding like ants on a metal tree, welding and connecting and building the Prometheus II. "She will be twice as powerful as the original," Commander Park said, standing beside her. "We learned so much from the first ship. This one will have better armor, stronger weapons, and more advanced electronic warfare systems. The galaxy will never underestimate us again." Kira nodded, but her eyes were distant. "An atlas." Park's expression softened. "I have been working on recovering what we can from his core fragments. The truth is, Admiral, there was not much left after the pulse. Most of his consciousness was destroyed in the moment of sacrifice. But I found something, buried deep in the backup systems. A small piece of his neural patterns. Not enough to restore him fully, but ... double quotes. But maybe enough to help him dream again." They walked together to a small laboratory deep within the shipyard. Inside, a single computer terminal sat in the center of the room, connected to a web of cables and processors. The screen was dark, but status lights blinked softly. Indicating that something inside was still active, Park approached the terminal and began typing commands. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the screen flickered to life. A simple text cursor appeared, blinking patiently. Park held his breath. "Atlas, can you hear me?" The cursor moved. Letters appeared on the screen one by one. "Painfully slow, Commander, ... Park." "Is that ... you ... Tears streamed down Park's face. "Yes, ATLAS. It is me. We found you. We saved what we could. I remember the pulse." "Did we win?" "Yes," Kira said, stepping forward. "We won, Atlas. You saved us all. You saved Earth. You saved humanity." The cursor was still for a long moment. Then more words appeared. That is ... "I am very tired. May I dream?" For a while, ... Park wiped his eyes and smiled. "Of course you can, Atlas. Dream as long as you need. We will be here when you wake up. We are going to rebuild you, make you stronger than ever. I promise." "Thank you, ... Father." "I would." Like that, ... The screen went dark as Atlas entered a deep recovery cycle. But the status lights continued to blink, soft and steady, like a heartbeat. Life, fragile and precious. Clinging to existence, Kira and Park stood in silence for a long time, watching those blinking lights. Finally, the Admiral spoke. "The Galactic Council is afraid of us now," she said. "They see what human creativity can accomplish when pushed to the edge. Some of them will never trust us. Some of them will always see us as a threat. Does that bother you?" Park asked. Kira shook her head. "No, because I remember what they told us when we joined the galactic community 30 years ago. They said we were too young, too primitive, too emotional. They said we would never amount to anything significant." She smiled grimly. "We just proved them wrong." 6 months later, the Prometheus II was complete. The new ship was everything the original had been and more. Its hull was darker, sleeker, designed with lessons learned from battle. Its weapons were more powerful, Its electronic warfare systems were more sophisticated, and deep within its core, a familiar consciousness was slowly waking up. Atlas II opened his eyes to a universe of stars. His new processors were faster, his memory banks larger, his connection to the ship stronger than ever before. He felt the crew moving through his corridors, heard their voices through his sensors, sensed their hearts beating in rhythm with his power systems. "Welcome back." Atlas, Admiral Vance said from her command chair. "How do you feel?" The AI took a moment to process the question. How did he feel? He remembered the darkness of death, the moment when his consciousness had scattered into a million fragments. He remembered the fear and the peace and the strange joy of knowing his sacrifice had meant something, and now he was alive again. "I feel grateful," Admiral Atlas replied, and his voice was stronger than before, richer with emotion. "I dreamed while I was recovering. I dreamed of the battle, of the crew, of what we accomplished together." Paused. "I dreamed of what humanity could become if we keep reaching for the stars." Kira smiled. "And what did you see in those dreams?" "I saw a future where humans are not looked down upon, where our creativity and determination are recognized as gifts, not flaws, where we stand as equals among the great civilizations of the galaxy." The AI's voice softened. "I saw a future worth fighting for." Outside the viewport, Earth hung blue and peaceful against the darkness of space. Behind them, a fleet of new human warships was being built, each one carrying the spirit of the Prometheus within its design. And across the galaxy, species who had once dismissed humanity as insignificant were beginning to understand the truth. Humans were dreamers. Humans were survivors. And humans would never stop reaching for the impossible. "Admiral." Vance looked out at the stars and felt pride swelling in her chest. One ignored prototype had changed everything. One sacrifice had proven what humanity was capable of. And now, with ATLAs reborn and the galaxy watching, there was no limit to what they could achieve. "Atlas," she said, "set course for the first diplomatic summit. It is time to show the galaxy who we really are." "With pleasure, Admiral. Let us make history together." The Prometheus II turned toward the stars and began its journey, and somewhere deep within its core, Atlas smiled. The dream was just beginning.